Hi everyone, my name is Heather and I'm the person behind Happy Puppy Truffles. Today I wanted to share with you guys a fun way that you can take the origami folder and make it bigger and more useful and, be a little eco-friendly and reuse bags and wrapping paper and things like that that you guys might have around your house. And I just kind of made a few different folder versions here out of some bags that I happen to have. There's a couple different techniques for the way you can do it. This one I just cut what I had and kind of played around with the sizing until I got something that looked like this. And I also had one that had some cool little leaf windows in it, and when I folded it up then I put a layer of color underneath. Both of these though weren't meant to be really any particular size, and there wasn't really so much of anything, aside from the leaf that I wanted on the front, that I needed to worry about things for that. But it's a fun way, and usually bags are so strong and sturdy that you get a really nice strong resulting folder from this. So you can use this, as a wallet. You can use it to put, little notes in, all sorts of different fun things that you can use it for. This is basically what the fold pattern looks like for this particular origami. And what I did was I went ahead and I made it, and then I just went ahead after putting it all together. Sometimes one thing that helps, especially when you're trying to make something line up a certain way or you're doing a design, if you make one of these little samples like this is the way things look when you're finished. And I just drew little corner markers and then the word front so that I know which way is right side up, which way is upside down, those kinds of things. So that you can just visually kind of think about stuff. So that if you were, for example, going to take, I was going to try to show you guys today with a old Christmas Starbucks bag. I want to try, if I can, fingers crossed, right, that if I can get the Starbucks logo or these cute little squirrels. I don't think it's big enough to see all the squirrels, though. We'll see what I can do. I'm hoping to get something in a good location here and then be able to, create everything. And you'll notice how tricky it can be, though, because you need double space down at the top and bottom. So maybe if I'm lucky, probably won't be able to get that guy. Probably if I try really hard, I can get maybe one of the squirrels to show up on the front side of the book that I make. So we'll give it a shot and see what happens, right? It can be a little tricky to make it try to line up. But I also thought I'd just show you guys really quickly. What I did was I made a larger version here to copy or mimic the size of file folders in Japan. This is a B5 size folder. And I just used wrapping paper, but it does need a really big piece of wrapping paper. And then I just put some thicker paper inside to serve as a strengthening to the fold. Wrapping paper is not strong enough when you just have it the way it is. It's very flimsy, but this really adds a little extra layer of strength. Now I've shown you guys this for when I made the iTunes card holder or the gift card holder, and adding that extra layer does extra thing too because it adds a little splash of color. But it also doesn't interfere with any of the pockets, so you still have pockets up on the sides here. You could put color there if you wanted, or extra layer there if you wanted, but it's just a fun way to kind of make stuff. So if you're interested in making real life size, to scale kinds of things, like if you want to make, you like my old Batman folder? If you want to make US size file folders like this, or puppies are so cute, right? If you want something this size, let me just tell you guys really quick because I've done all the math. If you are interested and you want to make a big size, US size folder, of course, I'm going to tell you dimensions in centimeters because I don't have a ruler that's in inches. You're probably going to hate me for that. You guys can do a little math, figure it out. Google it. They'll tell you the difference here. But if you're looking to make a US-sized folder, kind of like a Mead folder. Peachy folders are a little bit longer. I didn't even notice that, but they are just a tad bit taller. Usually, in terms of dimension, this is when it's opened. Okay, so it's opened like this. The dimensions for this are 30 centimeters by 48.5 centimeters. And when you make the file folder, the paper that you use needs to be 78.5 by 97. So if you keep that in mind when you're making things, then you can get stuff to be the size that you want it to be. Now, in my case, I did B5, and that was the Japanese size. And again, with the dimensions and with it open, This particular one, when it's opened and everything, is 25.2 by 36.4. And the paper then winds up needing to be 61.6 by 72.8. So those are just a couple of different variations of the ways that you can do stuff here. And that's just if you guys want to take, I know especially like wrapping paper is super large and you can probably use it. Possibly if you have like a really big brown paper bag, you might be able to use it as well. For the most part, regular shopping bags from other like stores, retail stores, probably aren't going to be big enough to do something like this big. You can shoot for making something smaller, maybe try to make something to hold your greeting cards in, something to hold business cards, something to hold, in Japan we do a lot of things with postcards, so those kinds of things could work too. But that's just some basic math if you guys are interested. I'm going to erase it here really quick. But the other thing, just to tell you guys really quick, I know it's lots of math and that can be annoying, but just a thing to kind of think about when you're doing this particular origami. And again, it comes from understanding what this origami really is made up of. And that's that you want to make sure that whatever you're making for, the really quick, easy math is that the length of your paper has to be twice as big, because we've got both these sides folded into the center. That's a given. So if you know that when you open your folder how long this side is, then times it by 2 and you need that for the length of your paper. So that's an easy thing to remember, right? The length of the paper needs to be, make it a little clearer here. The length of the paper is the length of the folder times 2, okay? Now, the other one here is that you need to make sure that you have this width space here can vary. It can be a little longer, it could be shorter, that's all good. But the things you have to consider first are that this little part here and here are set because you're folding a triangle over to create the little pocket area. And that is based partially on the dimension that we have over here. So basically, you're looking at 1/4 of this times 2, which happens to be half. So half of this length here is for this whole thing, but that's also just the length of the folder again. So you're going to use that number, and then you're just going to add how tall you want it to be. Okay, so in this case, you can just add the dimensions for that. So the length, the width of the paper is again the length of the folder plus the height. So that's nice and easy, right? And at least that much. Now, if it's a little bigger, it's okay, but you need to have it be at least that big, and then everything will work out. So, kind of a couple things to keep in mind if you're doing stuff. You can also just wing it. Take your paper, cut it up, make sure that it's kind of rectangular in shape, and see what you come up with. You can't be too narrow, because, like I said, if this is this dimension here, if you get these little 4 quarter places here, if each one of these is the same size, so you have 1, 2, 3, you're going to get more like one of these guys. This is like a square shaped kind of finished piece. And obviously you can't get any smaller than that, or these things start bending and rolling around each other and it gets kind of weird. So you have to keep it at least a little bit fatter if you can as you look at the paper that you've got. And, it's just a fun time to take any paper you have lying around. If you have some spare a bag that you want to use, try to use and recycle. That can always be fun, too. So I'll just show you guys really quick what I did here with my Starbucks one. Now, what I have here is just your standard bag, and we just take things apart. If you're really pushing it and you want to try to catch things up at the edge like this, you want to be a little careful when you take things apart, and you can try to use these areas as long as there's not too much glue on them, but you can clean them up a little bit so that they don't look too awful. But you just kind of open them up, And a good thing to do up here is to save these strings because they will really work great when you want to make your own bags. So, oops, my glue fell down. Let me open this up. You find the seam for the box, the bag, and try to take it apart at that part. And like I said, if this is something where you'd like to try to save that area because you think it looks good, then you can try to consider that as you do this. But a lot of times there's just a lot of tape there and glue there, and it's hard to kind of work with it really. But let me take this part off too. Some of these, you know, they come apart so nice and clean, and you've still got nice paper. You know, these Starbucks bags are recycled already, so the material isn't all that great. They come apart pretty quickly. We'll just kind of get all that out of the way. And that kind of lets us know then what kind of space we have. And if I keep in mind what I had here from my map, and you think about that, you know, the main part of what you're going to be seeing needs to be on the outermost edges of your paper here. And I need a little bit at the top too. Like, I don't know if I'll be able to get his face in, knowing that I need to have stuff up here. I might be able to. That might work. We can give it a shot. I can try to get that part in. And so the first thing you can kind of do from here with this is consider how much of this top part you can fold down before you run into the paper pattern that you're going to use. So I'm just going to fold down, for example, and try to get like as close to his head as I can. And that's just going to give me an idea of the dimensions that I can work with. So for example, that would be the front part of my folder there. Now, I know based on this value now how wide everything can be, because I can take that times 4. So if I just take my ruler and I see how big I've got things here, and it looks like it's about 8.5 centimeters. So that means if I have 34 centimeters across, that's how big everything can be. So I can kind of play around with that. And 34 is 17, that's the middle part. And luckily the bag and the design, I can kind of use that as a guide. I could use this center mark here as a guide and know how far out on each side I can go to get my design here. So if I use 17 and 34 here, I'm just going to go over here, mark it just for a second, and then from there out to 34. And you can do a couple different things. You can just use a ruler the whole time, or you can just try to kind of fold things over a little too with the paper that you've got. That's just sort of up to you guys of the preference that you have for making things. If you like it better when you've got everything really exact, then you can use the ruler and just measure everything out yourself. But this also works pretty good. So I'm kind of looking at that this is going to be the area that I'm going to be using here. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut it out first so I can have a little more space to work with. Let me cut this out really quick. So I know that I'm going to fold up this much on this side. I want to have the same distance here down at the bottom. And if there's anything there, I mean, I've got some pretty thin paper up here, but I'm just going to kind of keep it. If there's anything on this side I can use too, I want to make sure. And you could kind of decide if there's a place of how far you want things to go. Keep in mind again, if you don't want it to be too square, you want to make sure that you've got, you know, more than just the next amount. Now, if you'll recall looking at this, when you kind of fold things up, you can see you don't want to have you know, a huge amount. If it's exactly 1/4, if you get a square sheet of paper, that kind of creates a strange looking folder too. So I'm just going to kind of come down a little bit shy of everything here. And you can see this will give me a chance to get rid of some of this stuff too, because I don't really want that there if I can help it. So I'm just going to actually cut right where that is, and that should give me a good space actually. So I could fold it first. And this isn't certainly going to be a bag that's a perfect size for anything. I'm just kind of winging it to see what I get when I'm done here. But I'll get this guy cut off. So now I've got my finished piece of paper here, and we're just going to kind of see if I'm lucky and things fold right and I get a cool design when I'm done. And this, you just go through the basic folds for this. If you'll recall, you start off here with everything facing down. I'm just going to fold it in half, and this should already be this crease that happens to be in the bag that was marked for my center, so I'll just use that, of course. And then I'm going to take each of these sides and fold towards the center. Turn it around, do the same thing on the other side too. See, hopefully that this is going to turn out to be a cute pattern there. Open things up, and then down on each of these four corners I'm going to be folding to create a little triangle. And you just get all these little corners marked off. And in some cases like this where I had a little serrated edge and stuff, you want to try to remember that when you're making your folds. Can be confusing because there's a lot of other folds in the paper already, so you don't want to get too confused of what folds you're working from. I'm just going to fold this part forward, this part down, and then we're just going to follow the same steps of folding this part up and catching right at that point where the edge is for this. Try to straighten it out as much as I can. And you can use like a ruler or something to help you if you're working with really thick fabric, paper, excuse me. And then I'm just going to get the other side too here. And then you could choose if there's a particular point of which one you think looks better. This one's got a little frayed paper, so I'm just going to tuck that one underneath. And when you close it, you should get a fun little, cute little book. Oh, and that worked out pretty good. A nice big old snowman on the front and a cute little squirrel. And it's just a fun way to kind of use the bags that you might have lying around to create some fun, unique little folders that you can use for lots of different things. And like I said, you can also really easily use big pieces of wrapping paper and other kinds of papers like that to make real functional full-sized file folders as well. So with a little bit of practice and kind of laying out something like a map like this to know ahead of time, you might be able to get lucky and have a picture show up right where you want it to. But that's always a fun thing to do in the beginning, and then just have fun with it and see what look around and see what kinds of bags you might have that you can use. And then you'll make lots of fun little folders that you can keep little notes in your pocket. You can put coupons inside. You can put, if it's like, if this was a little bigger, you could put a CD inside or a DVD, something like that. So lots of fun things you can use it for. I'll have some more fun projects to share with you guys in the days to come. Thanks again always so much for watching, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye!